My other life advice for this week, or not my life advice, just something that I was thinking about this week as I was doing some reading around money and thinking through. And so I was doing some Googling around spending habits and how they've shifted during COVID-19. And that was pretty funny. It was a study from US statistics, but it was showing that one of the things that had gone up the most was spending on pets.
Really?
Everyone's at home.
Okay.
You've either probably gone and bought a pet, so you have companionship when you're at home working, or you're just around them more. Everything became more centered around the home.
Isn't that interesting?
You got your little companion to get you through the isolation. So spending went up on
I wouldn't
pets.
have guessed that. But it makes sense when you explain it, yeah.
So that went up like over 20% or something.
Is that right?
And so it would be interesting to know, that doesn't mean someone's spending 20% of their income.
No, but 20% more than they were.
Yeah.
We would account for that just for a vet.
Yeah. And spending on kids was down 4%.
So the more you're around your pet, the more you want to spend on it, the more you're around the kids, the less you do.
I thought that was...
I wonder, though, if there's some guilt thing in that. Like, people are around their kids more, so they don't need to just buy them that present or take them to the movies or...
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily reading that as a bad thing. It was probably like, they're getting spoiled less. Or the other thing would be was what activities were stopping that they didn't have to be paying for. Like sport.
Yeah, the sport's expensive.
Massive.
Kids are expensive, full stop.
Gee, you'd be happy if they cancelled cricket, wouldn't you, if you were a parent?
Oh.
Cricket would have to be so expensive.
Oh. All of them, though. It's funny, my wife and I have our finances set up with, I think you got, I don't know if you still do it, but with Splurge.
Yeah.
Your whole Splurge probably goes in your house at the moment.
Yeah.
But I was saying to Rennes the other day, I'm like, I feel like, because there's percentages, there's a percentage we give, there's a percentage we save, there's a percentage that we use for what we call our Smile, which is our family holidays and stuff, a whole host of different things, and then there's the largest percentage is that living, which includes your mortgage and all those sort of things. And then we've got this Splurge, which is just the fun spending stuff. And more often than not, mine will have multiple hundreds of dollars in it. Rennes will have about $30 in hers, because that's just how different we are, where Rennes will go, bargain, $30 shoes. I'd rather save up and buy the one $300 pair. It's just, and the beauty of having the Splurge is, I don't care, and she doesn't care that I'm Scrooge McDuck. She's like, it's your life, you reckon, mate? And I'm like, spend away, sister. But we were saying, imagine if our kids had, if we added everything that we regularly spend on the kids, even just for frivolous things, their splurges are heaps bigger than ours.
Yeah. And then they're still wanting pocket money. Yeah. So interesting on that one, the whole spender saver type thing. I've ordered a book which I'm waiting to arrive. Rachel Cruz, the daughter of
Tom.
Ted.
Ted.
Ever since I brought up the memory thing, I'm really aware of how bad my memory is. Dave Ramsey.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's written a book called Know Yourself, Know Your Money. So that'll be interesting. I'll offer more thoughts on that once it actually arrives and I start reading it.
That'd be useful. I'll wait till I've read it before I comment.
All I had to read was like a little snippet, and already she was picking me. But I'll go into that one another day. I'll save it. But when I was reading this article and was talking about money habits that had changed, but then it sort of made this little point of if you're forced to do something and you don't really embrace it from a mindset shift, then the second you have the ability to do the other things, you're going to go back to that behavior because you didn't really embrace the change. And so, I just found that very interesting. Yes, spending habits will have changed over COVID, but not everyone's going to maintain that if they're feeling really great about, I'm saving so much money or something like that. It's just about making sure that if that's something you're wanting to remain, you're not letting we were talking about this last week around circumstance versus mindset, not allowing the circumstance to be the driving force. It's why 80 or more % of people that go on a diet put the weight back on within less than 6 months and often end up with more weight on, because you've maybe done something that's like it's the situation you've created to force yourself into it, but you haven't actually changed some of the mindsets around why you eat those foods
Definitely.
or why you eat that quantity or whatever it might be, you know. So yeah, I was just finding that really interesting.
I think that's a massive, massive conversation to wrestle with in all areas of life. I've even seen it, and it's interesting you use COVID and the money even more broadly when it comes to COVID and COVID and church and COVID and a whole host of things. And people have talked about these massive shifts, and I'm like, I think it has sped up some shifts inside people, like
That were already maybe starting to occur. Yeah.
for sure. There's no doubt about that. But unless you change the paradigm that you're seeing things through, once the circumstances drift back, you drift back your behaviour as well.
Yeah.
100%. So it will be interesting with the spending thing.
Because I guess the thing that will be interesting is what industries or things change that then mean that
Right.
the forced situation remains, and
Yes.
that this becomes the new situation that is normal. So,
And even thinking
like
does
with online shopping,
right.
retail, the way that industry shifts.
And you're right, because the thinking eventually changes if the shift is strong enough. It's interesting, isn't it? Does a change in thinking alter the outcome or the circumstance, or can a change in circumstance that's strong enough and robust enough eventually shift thinking? And that's when you get, it's kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and the answer's probably both in different settings.